what they don't teach you at yCombinator. Good morning. How are you? I thought I was going to quit doing this thing, but guess what? Can't. Why? Because it's hilarious. How are you? Hope you're well. Happy Thanksgiving. Books Club. Book Club. There's 17 little facets of a book club that you and I shall be friends over because we're going to hack books in 20 small, incredibly minutia components that will absolutely springboard you during Y Combinator, before Y Combinator, and definitely after Y Combinator, because now you'll be able to win using books. Why? Facet number one, component number one. Books are simply a compression algorithm. The simplest way for this to be explained, and no simpler, is it takes somebody 20 years to write one book. And that book you can get for a month or two, depending on how slow you read. So you're winning even though you can't read super fast or read super well, or you can read well, but you selectively have chosen not to since college. That's not good. So let's proceed forward with book club, because the problem is books that you own but have not read. And so it's just like another kind of debt or detriment, which is technical debt. It's to your own detriment that you own books that you have not read over and over and over, or at least once. Just like technical debt, where you're proceeding forward and there's a torpedo in the water called technical debt, ditto books that you own but have not yet read. Facet number three. Hold on to your butt, because your brain is actually broken. I don't know. Actually, I do know why. Tristan wrote the book on why your brain is broken. Talks about how people are hooked into their smartphone. But let's not examine that. Let's walk through some initial steps for how your Harvard, Stanford, YC brain is in a reading optimization. You thought I was going to say your brain's broken? It's not. It's just not currently optimal. Empowering, right? So, just like fat people are trying to leave the sofa and do a 5K, sofa to 5K, we're going to go from 0 pages a day to 5 pages a day. And don't be saying stuff like, oh, I do book on tape, or I read email, or I read sometimes articles. Let's go from 0 paper pages per day to 5 pages per day. And it's an incredibly slippery slope to use electronic reading devices because of this other book club technique, which you will not get. I'm talking about physical books. The billionaire version of you reads 5 books per week. When do you believe that? Or do you believe that when you become a unicorn, which you will by using book club, that you won't be reading? Because the billionaire version of you will absolutely read 5 books per week. I'm meditating not for my money. I'm meditating goals for your money. Selling a book that you did not write. That's advanced, because I'm going to say this next thing, which is horrendous. Promoting a book that you own but did not read cover to cover. I see this all the time. Where people promote a book that they themselves did not read, and people just own up to it. Oh yeah, I haven't read all of it, or I haven't read any of it. And they're promoting it because it's on their heart and their brain so much, their technical debt or their book detriment. Like, they'll just promote, oh yeah, the Peter Thiel 0 to 1 book. It's like the person who's the Gen Z person who hasn't watched Top Gun beginning to end. They just know the memes. It's also like how people read, where they try to read contextually, but they have a really hard time with spelling out paragraph to paragraph. So when you're promoting a book that you did not read, you're not being dangerously naughty, which we're going to get to in a moment. You're being cliche, normal, non-millionaire. And it's not good to be a cliche. It's kind of not good to be normal. And it's definitely not good to not be a millionaire. I'm torn because that word million is a totally different video. But let's just not use that word. We'll just call it you're a blip. You're not a green dot yet, because you want to have a bunch of green dots on your way to 1 billion. Step number 1 is 600K. And the M word is so emotional and debilitating that you're torn about even trying to arrive at that. This is the naughty, awesome, rule bending but not rule breaking component of this video, which is what they don't teach you at yCombinator about organizing a book club. You want to not do it the old way. Old way of a book club, people all read one book for 5 weeks, and half the people in book club don't read the one book. That's the old way of book club. The new way of book club is hold on to your pants. It's panty dropping. Step 1. 2 people, 10 minutes, out in the open, in a hotel lobby, in a restaurant, at a bar. It doesn't matter. You can even do it at an industry cocktail party. 2 people hold the same book. They agree, hey, we're going to this party. Let's bring the Fiat Standard by Safedin Amu. 2 people meet up for book club. They're like, oh, let's bring Benoit Mandelbrot's book, Misbehavior of Markets. 2 people, 1 book. What happens is everyone else is like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to bring my book. And so you're creating scarcity while distributing somebody else's book. It just takes 10 minutes. In fact, it takes so little time, and the benefit is so absolutely high. 2 people, 10 minutes, same book. Pop-up book club. Will it work for 3 people? Yeah, but it takes 2 people. Oh, but like that's kind of weird, and I don't want to do anything that's distribution related. Fine. I'll do it. You can just watch me. This version of book club is 1 person, 3 books, at a coffee shop. Ideally, it's at an industry event, but you can do it literally wherever. Step one, the coffee shop. You're one person, you bring 3 copies of the same book. For example, I go to a Super Bowl party. I have 3 copies of my book just near me. 3 copies of Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural book. And then I memorize chapters 1 through 13. Because people will be like, oh, are you the author? Yeah, that's what is so scandalously awesome, is that you're selling a book that you've memorized chapters 1 through 13 on. I'll give you some examples later. So what you're doing here is you are, in essence, selling a book that you did not write, but you read. And once you start selling a book that you haven't read, then you're Loserville. But once you start literally collecting cash on a book that you did not write, but have used, it starts to get super crazy, because what you're doing is you're hunting problems and you're solving problems with that book. Let me give you an example of this. So let's say they're at Super Bowl and their knees are bad or their back is bad and they're considering back surgery. Hey, that's interesting that you bring up your physical ailment, because chapter 1, Joe Dispenza, he does some pretty amazing things connecting up his brain to his body. Do you believe in the brain-body connection at all? Question mark. And what you're doing is you're hunting for problems that you hear and solving them with the book at book club, because you don't have to just do this with the one book. Initially, you do it with the one book because people just casually ask, hey, I read the book. I see that you have the book, 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Did you write that book? And then you say, no, but Professor Steve Blank did, and I read it, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for a book club. And what you're doing by having the same book be in your possession, you're causing people to be attracted to you. Because women, instead of reading the book, they'll just be like, oh my gosh, I'll just sleep with the guy who does read books. So they're literally throwing vagina at you because you are able to not only read a book, which people realize subconsciously that their brain's broken. So then they're like, maybe I should at least talk about a book. And everyone's definitely excited about a book, because then you're quoting book, chapter, and verse. This is one of the facets of reading multiple books about entrepreneurship, because that's what yCombinator is not a hive mind, but it's a school of best practices after you go to your safety college, Princeton. That's what it is you are in I almost want to say fraternal org, but you're in a coeducational entrepreneurship org with men and women who are trying to succeed, and being able to quote book, chapter, verse, even a page number, becomes incredibly empowering. The other thing you want to do, which isn't scandalous, but it's so easy to do that very few people do it, I don't know why, which is quoting the HTML link. You don't want to just say, oh, look it up on PG Paul Graham's website, or search Google. Ew. Like, you're searching Google, you'll never find it, because Google doesn't want you to find it. And then I hate watching people Google things because they just barely Google it and they click the first link because they can't read all 10 before they research and add better search words. They just add 2 words, PG scale. So what you're doing is quoting HTML links. For example, I don't know if signing up 3 people for book club is really going to help my AI ML startup. I don't think book club. It feels like I'm doing something that won't scale, right? I mean, basically, I'm skipping forward to the point where the article, which is, if you think that you're wasting time doing book club, I have an article for you, www.paulgraham.com/ds, as in don't scale, .html. Because what you're doing is you're literally doing things that don't scale but have momentum. That's what book club is. Because initially you don't read because you don't think reading scales. Oh my God, this video is genius. This video is genius. That point, if you want to connect with me in a intelligent, meaningful way, hashtag DTTDSBHM. D as in do things that don't scale but have momentum. Hashtag, second time, comma quote, hashtag DTTDSBHM. D as in don't, T as in things that don't scale but have momentum. DTTDSBHM. That is on Twitter. In fact, don't text me, okay? That's weird. Good morning, Brady. Brady's dreaming. Brady wants you to do things that don't scale but have momentum. So quoting, citing, and sourcing turns you into a bibliography, a walking bibliography. Another thing that you can do if you're having a hard time memorizing the whole book is you want to just do page 172. Page 172, the Almanac, Charlie Munger, is we can realize that dividends are key. And this is the page that Michael Saylor is going to be reading when MicroStrategy gets short squeezed. Operational excellence. If you haven't read 7 Powers, competitive advantage and comparative advantage. And page 172 of this book is speed of execution. And the key page is page 136 and page 47. So what you're doing there is you're specifically quoting page 172, because page 172, almost every book, is the flagship page. The mom test does not have a page 172 because it's not that long. But there is a page 113, that is the page on how to do what Duck 9 does without having to hire Duck 9. And so there is no page 178. You're just going to have to memorize page 113. The cold start problem by a VC. Page 172 talks about Uber and the Uber case study, because I think he came into Uber to do growth hacking. And this is coincidentally live action business case study 3366. And coincidentally, it's the external API of starting the Uber API without consent. Crossing the chasm from the right. Page 172 is lead generation. And coincidentally, page 172 of 4 Steps to the Epiphany, remember how I mentioned that earlier? I literally used this book for a dinner club that Dave McClure hosted that Steve Blank wrote. And screw this book because it's got 2 versions. And so memorizing page numbers gets incredibly confusing when there's 2 sets of page numbers. Because page 172 of this version is the customer development cycle, which is almost literally exactly lead generation from the Crossing the Chasm book by Jeffrey Moore. There's 5 flagship books to avoid yCombinator bankruptcy. And I can literally quote every page of why YC companies go bankrupt via 5 books to avoid bankruptcy. And those 5 books are Crossing the Chasm, What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, 4 Steps to the Epiphany, Eric Ries's Lean Startup. Talk about a book that people own but do not read and reread. Maybe I'm guilty of it too, because it's the book that I reread the least. And the book that you have to at least own, because then I can point you to why your 5 Stanford founders and you're going bankrupt. Like, how in the world is that even possible? And that's me laughing at you. 4 Steps to the Epiphany again. 4 Steps to the Epiphany again. And this page 172 is lead generation. Lead generation and collecting leads. Because coincidentally, you can talk all you want about epiphanies, but if you're not trying to source brand new customers, then you're going to have a problem. Look, this is the book that we're talking about. This book is genius, and guess what? Page 172 of this book is actually storytelling, which is funny because it's not about business model generation. It's about soft pedaling, soft selling your startup by doing stories. Cool, right? So you just memorize page 172 of books that you either can't read and can't memorize. And so when you do that, then you front run people and you say, oh yeah, that book? I remember that. Page 172 talks about storytelling, Alexander Ostrander, and that page, that book really resonated with me. Do you see how you slip when it should be all the chapters that you memorize before you go to the speaker keynote? People visit Stanford, and then people Google the bio, or people don't even Google the bio anymore. They don't even DuckDuckGo the search for who is speaking here. They're just like, oh, it's another YC speaker. It's another YC speaker. I don't need to Google it. Where, if you're searching the speaker in their bio and they have a book, you have to read the book before they speak. You have to. And then if you own the book and you meant to read the book, but then you didn't read the book, at least memorize page 172. What I do is I read the whole book, and then I reread the whole book, and then I memorize the chapters 1 through, I'm looking at Safedino Moo's book, 1 through 16. And then you find the structure. Oh, chapters 1 through 5 were the setup, 5, 6, 7, 8 were the fiat system, and then the solution comes 9 through 17, 9 through 16. And then what things did he leave off, and what things did he connect in his bibliography? Then you can extrapolate, and then you can connect to other books that you've read that maybe he has not made the connection yet too.